Hello and welcome to day 3 of the NUSU debates. It is 3, yeah, I think. But so today we've got the Athletic Union Officer debate first, followed by the Activities Officer debate. I'll just introduce the candidates. We've got Katie Weinberger, Hannah Danks, and Jack Drain. Give them a little hand. And then we've got Katie Siddall from the Courier Sports section moderating, and Fergus Mainland, the current Athletic Union Officer, co-chairing. And without further ado, Katie, do you want to take it away?
So, starting with a statement of respect, NUSU welcomes all Newcastle University students to the 2022 election debates, organised and broadcast by NUSU's student media. Our priority is to facilitate a fair and democratic election, and we believe in freedom of speech and the right for all students to express their views. However, we will not tolerate harassment or discrimination of any kind. We ask that at all times you treat fellow students, colleagues and staff with respect. Anyone displaying rude, aggressive or other inappropriate behaviour within the online chat or in the room will be immediately removed and will be unable to play an active role in this or future debates relating to the 2022 student elections. So, starting with the first question for all of you. Oh, yeah, sorry, opening statements. Start with Teddy.
Should I receive the nomination for AU officer? I will work tirelessly to find new ways to inspire Newcastle students to live a healthy lifestyle. I pledge to never neglect the most important person in Team Newcastle, the student, and believe expanding the availability of nutritional and psychological support through the Sports Center is the best way to do this. There are so many resources, like sports counseling and cool and niche sporting clubs, that students here are simply not aware of. So I will implement a refresher session, a weekend for students to get the opportunity after Freshers Week to easily identify and access affordable taster sessions of the sports that they might be interested in. Finally, I pledge to increase the visibility of the Athletic Union Executive Committee and to work closely with them to improve participation in athletics at Newcastle. I have served on the sports committees of a successful NCAA team in the United States and can bring that fresh perspective and expertise to the table. I'm ready to take Newcastle to another level. Are you ready to put Teddy as your number 1 on March 7th?
Thank you. Hannah, when you're ready.
Hiya, I'm Hannah Danks. I'm a third-year BA Geography student. I'm currently president of the Newcastle Wildcats Ice Hockey Club and also sit on AU Exec Committee this year. My manifesto is based around 3 main points: extending welfare out to beyond a singular point of contact, subsidising qualifications for player coaches, and promoting Team Newcastle through spectating, volunteering, cross-club taster sessions, and celebrating every fixture and result.
Thank you. And Jack?
Hi guys, I'm Jack Locomotive Train and I'm running to be your next Athletic Union Officer. If elected, I want to do a threefold plan to get sport back on the map. First thing we're going to start is build on the sports community and the Team Newcastle feel. Through the last couple of years, Team Newcastle has taken a bit of a dive and then rebooted the last 2 years. I want to take this even further and implement more and more different socials and AU-wide events to bring everyone back under the sports community banner. Including that, I want to reinstate Sport Wednesdays, where we take over loofahs and we live stream sport in from around the UK, wherever sport's happening. Working with the student media officer to implement live stream sport wider and also make sure athletes are getting their social media presence up by giving them access to the footage and giving them training to be able to deliver their own footage. Equally, I want to recognise our amazing committees and player coaches more so. The way we're going to do this is implement a training pathway throughout the Athletic Union. This is going to be delivered by upskilling our in-house staff members and be able to give instructor qualifications so that we're able to get them to certify our committee members. Equally, I want to review sponsorship. At the moment, sponsorship is incredibly difficult for a lot of clubs to get, and a lot of clubs don't bother with it. I want to streamline this process completely and review what you're allowed to get sponsorship from. At the moment, we're not allowed to get sponsorship from bars or clubs. I believe this should be reviewed.
Thank you, everyone. So the first question now. you've all been on about how accessible you want to make sports for everyone. So in regards to equality, disabilities, what can you do, starting with Jack?
So, from a personal sense, I've worked in disability sports for a number of years. I've also worked in the youth sector for a number of years as well, working with different SEN background groups and ensuring that everyone has an inclusive sense. On a practical sense, we need to make sure that as coaches are given specialist training to mean that they're not put in the deep end when it comes to disabled athletes. We need to make sure we have appropriate support in place for everyone, including coaches and those players who do identify as disabled as well. I equally want to make sure that players with mental health conditions, which is a recognised disability, are given extra support that is appropriate to them. We really need to start focusing support as individuals instead of making it so generalised, which is currently the system.
Thank you. Hannah?
I do agree with Jack that obviously disability coaching would be great, but at the moment I would argue that because we don't even have regular coaching for a lot of clubs, there's a lot of player coaches, and that's part of adding in subsidised qualifications. Part of that could look at disability coaching as well. At the moment we just don't have the equipment for being able to do disability sport all the time, but that is definitely something that could look into the budget and expand that. I guess a good way of bringing in equality to sport would just be continuing the disability sports weeks, the gender inclusion weeks, and also looking at trans sports and networks and support groups. A lot of clubs obviously are split female-male. That is a bit of an issue with competing and training for trans people not being able to go into the category they want to identify in. So that's definitely something that can be looked at and reviewed. Also, again, with welfare, I think that brings in mental health issues and that sort of element of disability.
Thank you. Teddy?
I mean, like they said, we have a lot of great opportunities available here at Newcastle. One thing that I think that my expertise from my previous experience in sports can bring that is not already being implemented is an addition of a sports training. I'm certified as an EDI and diversity rep back home through California through my years of coaching, and I think that working closely with the sports department here at Newcastle, I think we could develop our own Team Newcastle diversity and inclusion training that we could bring to each of the sports clubs to further support that level of inclusion that you were talking about, Katie.
Questions just because we haven't got that much time. Sorry. Well, thank you.
Can I just remind you all just to be a bit closer to the microphone as well for the sound?
Thank you.
So my next question, varsity's being brought back. It's faced difficulties in the past few years. What can you do to help make it better? Yeah, Hannah, do you want to?
Sure. I think this year, with it starting back, it should get the excitement going for it again. Hopefully, year on year, we'll just be able to keep expanding and including more sports. I think that spectation as a general thing throughout the year would really help, because if people can spectate sports throughout the year, they'll be more inclined to go and do it on varsity days. And if sports can have spectators, then they'll want to participate in varsity more. But definitely, yeah. And also just including more sports into it, which obviously depends on Northumbria as well. So.
Thank you. Teddy?
So like Hannah said, making sure that there's spectators is a huge part of increasing the level of just intensity that varsity brings to the table. One thing that if you ever come to a Newcastle University volleyball game, you would notice is we have an incredible live stream, an incredible technical support team, and just like that level of technical expertise that we can bring to the table and working closely with the athletics department, I think could bring varsity to that next level and encouraging support and visibility, not just from Newcastle and Northumbria, but from the other recent, like the people in Newcastle and the Toon, just making sure that they get involved. It would be awesome for the varsity as a whole.
Thank you. Jack?
So totally agree with both of you guys standing there. Obviously, expectation is a massive issue for varsity, and it's what's going to carry varsity going forward. The key thing is how we're going to deliver it. So what we're going to do with that is, if I was elected, I'll work with the student media officer to ensure that sports media coverage is done from day one. Once that is all set up, we have sport clubs delivering their own content, being able to live stream. I know ice hockey and volleyball, you both do an amazing job so far, but let's ride that up. Let's get that market even wider. Once we've done that, we can then work with varsity to make sure we've got the club and we've got the technical expertise from the background to implement amazing live streams going out. Equally, we need to keep Northumbria in the tracks as well. By working with Northumbria from day one, getting more competitions done, not on a varsity sense, but just in between clubs, is a key message as well.
Thank you. Fergus, do you have anything to add? Would any of you like to contest anything anyone said either?
Can I just... So, Hannah, on your first point, you talked about not having disability sport all the time. Just with that, obviously, the equipment is quite universal. It's quite easy to get your hands on. Do you mind just clarifying that?
Yeah, I meant more financially. It's in terms of, obviously, if clubs can afford it or if the uni can afford it, then great to get that equipment. But it's not always the cheapest equipment to get. And obviously, then it's the coaching and getting enough people involved in it to be able to front teams and get proper training going. So yeah, that's what I meant.
Has anyone in the audience got any questions?
Give me a little hand raise. Come on, guys. Thank you very much. We've got one here. Here you go, mate.
Thank you very much. So obviously sports at Newcastle at the moment is quite kind of contained to those who are competing in the first teams or kind of competing on a national level. How would you kind of broadcast sports a little bit more widely to those who maybe just want to compete or kind of get involved for leisure, I guess?
Yeah, I'll go first. I was going to say, I think running beginner sessions across clubs is a really good idea. Obviously, a lot of people do it in the first couple of weeks, but Freshers Week and the start of uni gets really busy. So kind of looking at doing that again sometime through the year or kind of continuously. Especially, I also agree with it in terms of lots of performance athletes who are already in sport don't get the chance to then go and try new sports. There's a lot of sports at university that you wouldn't get the chance to try once you're out of university. Things like korfball or ultimate frisbee, they're not readily available in the general community. So it's kind of a shame that people come into sports clubs and they stay with the sport they know and they don't get to try the other sports because the taster sessions are kind of all at the same time. It's always Bucks Wednesdays. So looking at trying to organise and timetable that so that people can try new things. And also having kind of your performance side of the sport and your kind of social taster side. That's how you're going to get more people in.
Thank you. Teddy, do you want to take it?
Yeah, I'd be happy to tag on that one. So a lot of people don't know this about me, but at my old university, I actually was one of the first team players of esports community. And one thing that I learned from them that they do a really good job of is they broadcast anything. It doesn't matter how good you are. Anyone can be a presence on social media and the internet. And I think that's one way we can really improve the visibility of the twos, the threes, the social, the intramural teams here at Newcastle is just by broadcasting them. Put the word out, put posters up, get people at the games, get supporters and viewers. And that's one way that, if we do that, we get more people at the games, we get more support, all of a sudden, Team Newcastle becomes something special, right?
Thank you, Jack.
So obviously, when we're talking about sport, I'm talking about the Bucks athletes. They are high performance, but we need to be working a lot more to get those athletes at a lower level or even a medium level up to that performance level if they wanted to. Equally, with that, we need to be giving up more opportunities for those lower athletes to be competing more if they want to and simply do the sport they love. We're all athletes here. We love sport, and that's why I want to run for it. But just to tag on from the other two guys, because it is in my manifesto, and I don't want to discredit anything you've just said, but the main reason that I'm going to want to deliver that is A, work with all teams to deliver sports media across the board, and B, get this big social media presence up there so that more participants are feeling more able to deliver in clubs, and then we get the coaching qualifications involved as well. So when they turn up, they're actually able to be delivered by qualified coaches to be able to do the sport at a high level as well.
One for me, I think hearing you wanting to sort of expand sport into the wider university community is great. Obviously, we've just had the likes of Cochrane Park redeveloped, and which allows that to become a really good hub for rugby, football, ultimate frisbee, and other sports. And I think it's great they're wanting to get spectators there, but all these clubs that we've got using Cochrane Park, that they're not already, say, staying and supporting the other teams. They turn up for their match, then they perhaps go. How do you start to try and change the culture so that we've got rugby who then want to stay and watch football, or football who want to stay and watch rugby? How do you try and make it more of a community feel and have everyone supporting each other?
So,
Jack.
So obviously, the way we'd be doing that is by building a sports community. Obviously, Team Newcastle is one thing. Sports community is the bigger network. By delivering AU-wide socials and be delivering AU-wide events to build up social networks, we then break down that barrier of I'm a rugby player, I'll only watch rugby. I'm a football player, I'll only watch football. We break that down and break it down into sport as a whole, and also by doing that, we create a bigger support network for more athletes to be able to participate in sport.
Teddy?
Yeah, so the question is, how can we get like the teams that might not be able to play otherwise, or like watch each other's games otherwise, like more involved in each other's games? Well, I think that's simple. It has to do with that new digital age that we're coming into, broadcasting those games, making sure that everyone has the opportunity to either watch them live or on demand. Sometimes teams have the games at the same time and it just doesn't work out. But as the sports season goes later and later on, like there'll become more opportunities for teams to watch each other's games. And that includes exhibition matches, not outside of Bucks. Like that gives a team an opportunity to watch another team play and maybe learn something about another sport outside of Bucks Wednesday, which is an amazing Wednesday tradition you guys have, by the way.
Yeah, I completely agree with both of you. I'd also say that realistically, it's not going to happen straight away. I think a lot of clubs in like AU clubs have got very used to being their individual club and less of a whole sporting community. So it will take a while just to get that going. But definitely spectatorship opportunities will mean that people will get more invested in other sports, things that they didn't know happened, like I've not watched all the sports that go on at this uni. I'm quite excited to try and do that next year if I get elected. It's things like that because there's not always been the opportunity to do that. Obviously, you're right, like things will happen at the same time, but things like streaming obviously helps. And also getting opportunities to kind of do cross-club, either like collaborations, volunteering, taster sessions will get people more interested. Because I'd say that the best time of year for me was Freshers' Fair because I hadn't met half the clubs before, and then I got to go around and I talked to everyone, and it was so nice. And I think the more that we do events like that, the better it will get.
Thank you. So going on to your individual manifesto, starting with Teddy, how you go on about trying to get nutritional and psychological resources for students, how would you propose to do that?
Well, it's a great question, by the way. And my answer to that is, a lot of people don't know this, but psychological support, sports counseling, is already there for many of the first team's players. Nutritional support, that's an easy fix. There's so many resources out on the internet, and even people like individuals on teams that may even be qualified to be giving that advice. It's all about how can we expand the coverage of it, broadcasting events where we might have a talk about nutrition or a mental health awareness week that we can bring to the students to make sure that the resources at the sports center are put to work, not just for the first team athletes, but all the athletes competing across every club at Newcastle.
Thank you. Hannah, you talk about celebrating on social media all the sporting achievements we do. In what ways do you want to celebrate on and off social media?
I think it's just about doing roundups so that everyone knows who's playing when and like what's going on, and celebrating the fixtures as well as the results. Obviously, not everyone wants to submit their fixture results if they're not great. But being able to do that and sharing them out, kind of as actually Fergus has started doing recently with Newcastle Sport as well. And it's good for everyone to be able to see who's winning and who's doing well in their leagues and kind of celebrating each other. And then it makes more sense, I think, at the end of the year when it comes to AU awards and things like that, that you know why those clubs have done that or got those awards because you've seen their success through the year.
Great, thank you. Jack, you have touched on it tonight. You're talking about going to Luther's for socials on Books Wednesday. It's failed in previous years. What makes it different for you to go to Luther's?
Absolutely. So when we talk about Luther's, we're talking about Luther's as a venue, not as a university bar, and I made that distinction very clear. Because what we want to do is create a supporter network as well. As well as sports community, as our athletes, we have our supporters as well. By live streaming into Luther's, we create a great space and different clubs can come together as a supporter network. Meaning they can be there from about 2 o'clock. When all the sports teams arrive, say 5, 6, we've already got a vibe going on in there, and sport members can then come into the main central room and then build on that sports community that I really am passionate about.
Thank you. We've got a question from online. Livia Scott asks, clearly getting sports coverage is important, but there's already so many sports, instas, media out there. How will you ensure you are not oversaturating students or making sure they are actually engaging? Jack, do you want to start with this one?
Yeah, absolutely. So as production manager of NUSU, which is a role I currently undertake, we have a lot of content all over the place. What's really important is about bringing that down and about bringing that quality of high level. By offering training to clubs and by offering them high level equipment through sports media, we then create this massive pool of media which can then be edited down into roundup reels on Facebook, Instagram, meaning that they have a central place for all the content to be delivered, and we ensure that we're not oversaturating our students. Equally, we keep the Instagram accounts for each club individual and there, so anyone who's got a massive interest in the sport can go on there and view the full footage in full.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, but I was kind of adding to that would be, I guess it would be good if it was all in one place on kind of like the NUSU website or on some sort of hub, take it off social media necessarily and put it in one place where people will know how to get to it. Just because there's so many social media accounts for the uni and for individual clubs that it can just get confusing about who's posting what. So if it was like on the website and everyone knew where to find it and there's links and recordings on there organised, then that would make more sense.
I mean, I heard a really great point from Jack that I'd really like to reiterate, which is how can we bring the quality up? Not decrease the amount of quantity, but just bring the quality up that another level. I know that if anyone's watched a volleyball game at Newcastle, they know the quality of our streams, of our promotion is very high. And I have the expertise through my years in the States supporting clubs with, our team brings in like 500, 600 supporters a night for our sporting fixtures. I think I have the expertise to know how to bring in that kind of level of support, not like 600 people on the sports center. It's not that big, but just bringing in that level of support, of intensity and engagement from the Newcastle students for sport. And yeah, I think that's a great way to increase the quality right there.
Thank you. So what would you recommend priorities for new strategy for sport and active wellbeing would be, Teddy?
For support and, sorry?
What would you recommend priorities for the new strategy for sport and active wellbeing?
For the NUSU to do so I think hiring a full-time psychological counselor to do talks for the sporting clubs, just like we do anti-doping talks or sexual education talks for the clubs, various clubs at Newcastle. I think that would be a great way to increase that level of support for the student. Also bringing in a nutritionist just to do maybe one talk a year just for all the sporting clubs, maybe even during the intro sporting fair for the performance clubs, but making it virtual and publicized so that not just performance students and scholars getting a scholarship from Newcastle can access it, but making it accessible for all the athletes, many of whom can need it when juggling sports and academics here.
Hannah?
I would agree with Teddy on that. In terms of making it virtual, I think it's another thing that I put in about welfare is expanding how many people get that training, and the best way we've found to do it in terms of like our experience over the last couple of years is putting it virtually. You can only get so many people in a room, and then it goes to prioritizing like who's the officer for that. But if you can put it online, it means that it's accessible for everyone regardless of whether they're a performance athlete or a social athlete and they just want to watch in and learn more. So that would probably be the best way of doing it.
Jack?
So really good points there, guys, and actually you've given me a few ideas as well. But what I really want to stress is, if I was elected, I want to push the training pathway. What this means is it's upskilling pre-existing members of staff and members of committees to be able to deliver that training in-house. By delivering welfare training, delivering nutrition training as instructor level, and then getting club members to advise their club, we break down this number of people who are able to train and is also able to deliver that content. We also ensure the quality is a high level because we're doing it through qualifications, which then allow club committee members to be recognised for all their efforts as well. Equally, by raising the sports community environment, we get more people involved in sport and interested in sports. By doing that, we create a participation boom and we get more people involved as well, and we just climb and climb and climb.
Thank you. We've got a question online from Kaylee. For Jack, do you not worry about getting enough people to do tech and camera work? It sounds like a lot of coverage that may not be attainable with a small team. How realistic are your goals?
Yep, so absolutely. So as I mentioned before, my main aim will be to deliver tech training and media training out across the board. Once we've built up that media team, we can then use the clubs to deliver their own content, and we bring that central content in to a sports media team who can edit and deliver that content. The main aim now, however, is to get the clubs delivering their own content, because you guys know your sports the best. If we get media teams in there, yes, we can film well, but we don't know inside out the sport, and that is why the big push is training first, getting that content, and then we can edit it as a whole.
So why aren't you running for student media officer?
Sorry, I couldn't hit.
I said, why aren't you running for student media officer?
Because the main reason is although student media is important to me, my main aim always was sports media, and although that is a big part of what I want and part of my life, I love sport. Right from an early age, I was that bit of a guy who's a bit out on the outside, and that was until I found judo. Went through the ranks of judo. I'm actually brown belt in judo at this moment in time. Sport was my escape, and that is really what I'm passionate about. That is why I'm always the guy running around, trying to get more and more people involved, because I realise what a tool and how powerful sport can be to a lot of individuals.
I think it's great that you're talking about what you want to do. I think all three of you for the current athletic union clubs. I think having just appointed a new sports development coordinator, a large part of their role, and working with the successful candidate is going to be engaging with the community at the university who don't actually participate in sport or aren't active. So how would you reach this community? I think everything that you've talked about is great for engaging those who already do sport. So how do you go and engage with the community at university who aren't actually active at the moment? Teddy first.
Yeah, so it's a great question. The most interactive that students get with sports at Newcastle is during Freshers Week. That's why I think my promise of a refreshers week after Freshers Week to get students another chance to engage with sport would be so meaningful to students. And that's also why I'm prepared to work with the athletics department to no end to fulfill my campaign slogan to inspire healthy lifestyles for students at Newcastle.
I'd say working with Give It a Go is really, really beneficial. In the ice hockey club, we do a 6-week free course. A lot of people come for the free 6 weeks of skating, and then they choose whether they want to carry on or not. And it's just really good because it makes it fun. It's not loads of pressure to join the team or do anything like that. You're not committing to anything. You don't have to buy the membership. But obviously, we hope that a lot of people will. And we run that through Give It a Go, and we get really, really good response. So I guess encouraging clubs throughout the year to be able to try and put on taster sessions with Give It a Go, and kind of doing it at different levels. Obviously, they've got to recognise, like, as sport clubs, we have a lot of performance athletes, but people will come into this brand new, never having played the sport before, and just wanting to give it a try, and kind of catering for lower abilities as well.
So obviously, what I've talked about a lot is the sports community and sports network. Obviously, part of that is a support basis, and I really want to stress how many people actually watch sport on a daily basis. You know, some of you guys in the room and some of you guys online might go home tonight and watch a bit of a match or a bit of a football match and just watch a tiny bit of sport, and that is also a big part of the community feel. Obviously, we then need to create pathways so people who want to get involved from a sport point of view can get involved in their main sport as well. In addition to this, it's also about holding these AU events as part of the sport community for the wider AU participation. Once we start getting on campus, once we start making ourselves a bit visible presence, we then create a bit more of a community atmosphere and create a bit more of a buzz for sport, and that's how we get the community bigger and better.
Thanks, guys. We're just going to go to audience questions now.
Please give me a hand raise. Come on. All right, lovely. We've got one.
Hi. So you all talk about streaming and like getting people there, but like as an athlete, I play football for the women's team. How are you gonna make my life easier, like day to day, like as an athlete experience? Because yeah, I want people to see me, but no one's gonna see my struggles and how hard I cope with like coaches or like times, facilities, equipment. How are you gonna make that better for an athlete, apart from the streaming and like getting more people involved and like spectating?
I would say that, like, especially for people on committees, it's very stressful organising and getting that done. And a lot of that is people needing extra support from kind of like from AU, looking at things that could be made easier, and kind of expanding, kind of not, that's where I kind of argue with Jack about the student, like doing it yourself with the media. purely because as good as it is to get the media out there and have that training, it then adds extra pressure to then be able to find that person to go and do the filming every time. It is like running a club is difficult. And I think everyone needs extra kind of welfare and extra support and less jobs being put on them in that way.
I was just going to ask if you could follow on just a bit more and just explain as to sort of those challenges that you've mentioned. What are they, and how would you look to go about fixing them?
I guess like obviously, well, I guess it depends. It goes club to club. That's the thing. All the struggles that athletes face go club to club. It depends. But kind of expanding welfare support for people, not putting so many jobs on one role, because that's where kind of burnout happens and people stop enjoying their sport. And also giving people, even in performance sports, the chance to enjoy other sports socially, because that kind of expands and kind of renews their love for sport rather than draining them like some roles do.
Can I tag on?
Yeah.
One thing that I haven't heard a lot of people mention in response to your question is the money issue. The athletic union officer is in charge of a 320,000 pound budget, and I personally served as treasurer at my last institution, and I'm prepared to make sure that each pound of that budget is made to work for students, in regardless of whatever form that need comes in. I'll make sure that the athletic union executive committee and the sports center is working to make sure that each of the sports clubs has an easier time dealing with the many challenges of being a student athlete at Newcastle.
I think similar to Hannah, can you just be more specific or give a couple of examples as to how you'd do that?
Yeah, for sure. Like, one thing is we can increase the number of jobs for students at Newcastle to be able to work in other team sports teams. I know that one thing that my last institution did is they made refereeing, all the different types of jobs in terms of managing a team's equipment, jobs available for students to make sure that the budget goes to work for students and goes in the hands of students. And I think that's one way that we can make sure that affordable work is available for sports clubs at Newcastle.
Thank you. So the final question. Fergus campaign... sorry, Jack, do you want to...
So I'll be dead quick, Kate, because I know we're quite pushing for time. But obviously, there's a three-pronged approach that I'll do. First thing is review sponsorship. That is making everything a lot more efficient and making clubs be able to access sponsors and be able to get more money that way. On that back of that efficiency, we also want to make this sports community even bigger, and by delivering training sessions and doing a training pathway. What that means day to day for yourselves as athletes is not that we're going to load you with more work, not that we're going to load you with qualifications and give it there. It means you guys are going to have the skills there to be more efficient in the way that you can deliver your clubs, taking that stress and pressure off you, meaning that we can actually, if there's a skill shortage there, we can actually work with you guys, club by club, to deliver what do we need to put in place to help you guys out in terms of more support. Equally, we want to get that down to that sport as well. At the end of the day, we can talk about bureaucracy all we want. We can talk about politics. We can talk about what the AU means. Let's get back down to we're athletes. We want to play sports, and we need to focus on that. And if we're not doing that, there's obviously bigger issues. And that is where I'd love for you guys, if elected, you come and speak to me, and we can work with you guys to deliver a personalised sports package for each individual club and each individual athlete through this training programme that I've already mentioned.
Thank you. So my final question is, Fergus campaigned for home truth throughout this year. What campaign could you do whilst you are the AU officer? Hannah, do you want to start?
I think I'd like to look into more inclusive campaigns, looking into how we can get more kind of LGBTQIA+, more disability, kind of just making sport more inclusive, which I'm sure there's plenty of campaigns through the year that we can tag onto the events of, but also making it throughout the year rather than like how you have awareness weeks or awareness months, kind of making that continuous throughout the year.
Jack?
So one thing I'm really passionate about is honesty and participation in sport. And they are two very sort of different areas. But the first one, honesty, is about being honest athletes. It's about trusting your teammates. That is something that is consistently overlooked, and we need to start recognising that. When you're on a team sport, your teammates, are like your best mates. They're like your family. It's an undescribable feeling of emotion, and we need to recognise that and actually By doing that, we then increase participation. We're honest about what we are, we're honest about the struggles, we're honest about the hard times, we're also honest about the good times. Creating this participation buzz and getting more people involved in sport is obviously the main aim of that. But then we create and we are honest with each other as well.
Teddy?
One thing that I'm very passionate about is, and I think Home Truths is an amazing campaign, is social justice issues. I serve as a course rep for the Global Politics program here at Newcastle. And one thing that I think the athletic union officer needs to be prepared to do is to adapt to the ever-changing needs of the student body. I want to work for the students, and I want to work for you to inspire healthy lifestyles. And you know, with COVID in the past few years and the Ukraine crisis today, I think there's a lot of students out there struggling. And I think that by advancing social justice issues, both digitally and using different campaigns, different ways to address student needs today is the best way for an athletic union officer to be adaptable to the needs of the student.
Thank you. And then go to closing statements now. Jack, do you want to start?
Yep, so thanks you all listening to me. Obviously, I know my voice is probably droned on a bit, but I hope you've found out and got the passion for sports and AU politics. Obviously, we've talked about a lot, and I really want to stress, if anybody's a bit unsure about anything I've said or needs any clarification, by all means, drop me a message on Instagram or Facebook, JT for AU, and I hope to be seeing you guys in September as your AU officer, working with all the sports clubs and working to build a bigger sports community for everyone.
Hannah?
Yeah, pretty much the same. Just thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. Any questions about my manifesto or what I want to do in the role, just shoot me a message. It's at Danks_AU22. And I'd be more than happy to answer.
Teddy?
63 clubs and a £320,000 budget rests on the shoulders of the athletic union officer. As an avid sports lover and tireless supporter of Team Newcastle, I believe that I'm the guy to ensure that these resources are put to work for the most important person of Team Newcastle, the student. As always, feel free to reach out in person or over social media on Teddy for NUAU if you have any questions. And on March 7th, I hope you're as ready as I am to vote Teddy as Team Newcastle's #1.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, then. Well, that was the athletic officer debate. Thank you to all the participants. Thank you to Katie and Fergus for doing a great job. Give them another round of applause because I demand it. And now, please, if you're going to be leaving the room, please remember to take your anything you brought with you in. I mean, you know, wrappers, stuff like that. And we're going to have the activities officer debate starting in 15 minutes. So please be back in here in time for that. And yeah, thank you all for coming. Have a great night. See you in a bit.
Well done, guys.
Well done, everyone.
Set. But yeah, guys, the activities debate will be starting at 6:50. Sorry, a bit earlier than that.